Then- Hey,
Hey, good morning.
good morning.
Make sure my audio is registering. Oh, good. They didn't totally ruin my settings. That's a good start. Got to check every time, every time.
Trying to go live. There we go, I think. Yep.
Okay. I think that's functional. Yep, looks like it just posted. It's good. Technology hasn't completely failed yet this morning. There's still time. Excellent. Okay. There we go. Well, how are you doing this morning? I know we've got a lot of chaos going on in the background, a lot of meetings, all the things.
Yeah, going well. Going well.
Sounds like there's still some continued interest. I know we still have some more meetings coming up for follow-ups. We've had a lot of interest on some of the new stuff. So I think we're getting interest, and that's a good thing. So we've been hard at work behind the scenes to try and make sure we've got good options for people.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I a one-to-one this morning. Super excited that there's an unlimited one-to-one option now, So to be able to have somebody constantly in their corner to ask questions to not feel like they're doing the business by themselves,
Right.
and just all the things, So
Yeah, or have a 3-day lag time between responses or scheduling calls.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think that's very much going to be the thing that people are very, very excited about. So we'll see how well that gets adopted. I suspect the first couple people through will find huge benefit, because that's a thing that we came up with the idea in mind that, hey, this would be a really cool thing for people to be able to have access to. But how do we do it better? How do we do it and remove some of the resistances in the process? How do we sort of look at it like Amazon would? And this is, I think, very much more in that strain. So I'm pretty curious to see how the results look.
Yep, most definitely. And I mean, just the people that we've saw so much success with so far has been ones who are constantly using one-to-ones and stuff. So they're definitely very beneficial.
Yeah, that's also very, very helpful. So Tara says, hey. Debbie says, there you are. We've been, sorry, y'all. We've been trying a lot of fun things going on in the background. So there are a couple people on, so that's good. We don't have a lot logged into Zoom yet, but we'll get there, I'm sure. So I'm curious to know how everybody's doing this morning. If you haven't already, follow up in the comments on this, and hopefully we'll be able to keep an eye out. So looks like Debbie's connected. How you doing this morning, Debbie?
I'm great. I thought I was left out of the loop and you guys weren't coming today. And I'm like, no, I'm going to hold out. I'm holding out to the very end.
Right. That's usually a good plan. There's usually there's usually a good reason if something doesn't start on time. So there's a lot of things moving and shaking in the background of what's going on. So we're excited about some of the new processes and aspects. I know you had definitely been interested in the call that we were doing last week. Did you get a chance to follow up and see that one, Debbie?
No, all parties concerned have not viewed it yet. We have a lot of rocking and rolling also going on. So
Okay.
yeah,
That's
we're just,
that's a
it's
good
on the
problem to
burner.
have.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on the burner.
Yeah, I figured that was one that we would just try and get scheduled, get in the list so that people could go back and refer to it. So that way we're kind of building out our database of interesting tools. So it's too bad we don't have like a simple playlist option, like on YouTube or something for you guys to go back on. That would be something that
That'd be awesome.
Facebook
That'd
could
be
benefit
awesome.
from, right?
Yeah.
Top 5 most rewatched calls, and then another one with top tools or something, right? So
Right.
we're really messing out on engagement. Do you hear me, Facebook? I know you listen to the word engagement.
Oh boy, does it ever listen? It's scary.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, but I asked it to do something beneficial, so that's probably not going to happen.
It's in the wind.
It could be. It could be. So we'll see if it gets back to them. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Apologies for the late start to this one today. We've got a lot of questions and a lot of meetings going on, a lot of people asking about some of the new resources that we've been bringing to the table. Because there's been a lot of people have seen the posts. They're not sure 100% what everything is going on. So it might be a helpful thing just generally for us to kind of recap, Megan, what things we're doing and why. Because I think that's maybe one of the points of confusion out there is what are all of these different posts and things, and some of the emails are showing new content. So there's a lot going on. So we have a few different products. So one of the things that we've been thinking about critically a lot is we've been thinking about how do we improve the response time? How do we get you guys better access to answers to questions? How do we sort of solve some of the resistances that are in that whole side of this? So we can't necessarily put a coach on a live call 24/7, right? They have to take a food break occasionally, as it turns out. So we tried to figure out that plan, but that didn't work out so well. Also, that cost at an hourly rate is pretty egregious, so that wouldn't work out. So instead, one of the things that we've been talking about recently is this option for you guys to have unlimited one-to-ones, and we're changing the format of that slightly in order to make that happen. So one of the things that's people have been curious about is we're setting up on the back end a Voxer chat so that you guys will have a much more direct access to answer questions. Some things are still going to be very, very much focused on, live one-to-one meetings, all of those sorts of things. Some questions are really, really hard to answer just by a response. But the good news is that gives a lot of flexibility in terms of who can respond and to what degree. And so some of the questions that might be a quick answer, somebody can jump in and give you guys a quick answer, and you don't have to wait 2-3 days to schedule with somebody, get a one-to-one. So it's all about trying to figure out how to improve the efficiencies all around, both on our end and then on you guys' end as well. So Megan, maybe you can share some more of your thoughts and with all of your background, why we thought this was such a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, just from our experience, what we've been seeing with some of the other students or bookkeepers that are in the program has been the ones who are using the most one-to-ones have have the ones who've been seeing the most success. A lot of people, when they're not using the one-to-ones, it seems like they're stuck. They don't know what to use the one-to-ones for. They're saving them because they're like, oh, I might need this. And they're not using, they're afraid they're going to need it for a client question. So they're not using it for other areas of their business. Mindset, marketing, like, hey, look at my cash flow. I don't know what's messing up, just like all the things, because we want to help with every area of your business. We want to help with the bookkeeping questions, but that's not all we're here for. We can support you in other ways. And a lot of people don't realize that, or they're nervous that a bookkeeping question is going to come up. So they don't use the one-to-ones or whatever the case is. So the ones who are using the most seem to get the most success. So relying on us, asking those questions, or just hopping in. I've had a couple this week with people who are like, I don't know what questions to even ask, but I have a one-to-one, I want to use it. So it was a great opportunity to talk about mindset, to talk about where their business was, to review clients' books because they weren't knowing if they were doing things correctly, like doing all the things to make sure there weren't issues later on and stuff. So I think that's definitely going to be, and I think the Voxer is going to be huge as well, because a lot of times we'll be in the middle, and myself included, in the middle of working on something, and you want to just be able to send a quick message to somebody because it's one little question that I don't need a 30-minute Zoom call for, but I need to answer that question to move on to be able to do something else or to get it completed. So I'm super excited about that, because I use Sherry a lot for that, for myself personally, if I run into an issue. And, like we do that, coaches between ourselves a lot. But it's something like, okay, we're going to get a notification on our phone right then when you get that message. So we're going to try to answer it more timely and stuff, So yeah, super excited. And I think it's going to be huge for the people that sign up. And especially if you're trying to get to that next level and you're just like stuck and don't know why you're not getting there, or don't have the confidence, you then have coaches in your back pocket, to help at any time you need it.
Well, that's been, I think, a big theme for us has been working on how do we get people unstuck? Because that's one of the things that we're hearing so often right now is definitely exactly that. They're treating the one-to-ones as a scarce resource, so they're not making as good a use of them as we know that they could. And we can suggest all that we want to, hey, use them for this, use them for this, use them to help answer business questions, use them to, look at strategy, use them to review where you are in your client list, who you're serving. Are they the right kind of client fit for you? Or are you just trying to take money from anything that moves, right? And where do you land in that spectrum? And how do you get past some of the roadblocks? Well, something else that I know you can speak to very well is that scarcity mindset is going to roadblock you 8 ways to Sunday. Like it is not it's not helpful. And so what we want to do for you guys is remove some of that. What are some of the examples that you've seen in your own business where you've done tons and tons of mindset work and seen really, really good results from it? So it might be helpful for them to understand more in detail why that scarcity mindset is just such a mountain in between them and success.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning of my business, there was a lot of times where I was like, oh, I'll do, shamed to even admit this, but like I'll do that cleanup job for free just to get that reoccurring revenue because I want it to replace my income. And those were the worst clients, to be honest, because then they expected everything to be for free, or they would stay for a couple of months and then they would leave. Like it was not worth it at all. And I mean, I just this year, Sherry's created the calculator and stuff for the group. So I started using the calculator for some of the pricing on some of the clients, because I've had some clients that I've never worked with that specific industry. So I'm like, I'm not exactly sure how to price these. So I used the calculator that she created, and there was a couple who it was like, oh, this is more than what I initially would have thought. I would not have quoted that. And one of them, like within a minute or so replied back, sign me up, send me an engagement letter, the first one I ever sent after I did that. And it's just, I've signed, I don't remember how many now total, but I want to say like just from January to March, it was like 14 businesses. There was
Yeah.
some business owners had multiple businesses, but 14 businesses total. And there was, I quoted a few, I might have had one or two no's. So there was way more yeses than no's. And before I was always nervous to quote any higher than my $300 a month because these people aren't going to pay it. They're not going to do that. Or I'm
Right.
going to quote them 200 instead of 300 because I don't feel like they can afford that. But like,
Yeah.
you're doing a disservice to yourself and them by saying that, because some of them are like, yes, sign me up, I don't care, like $300 a month, even if they have 100 transactions, it's well worth it to them because now they have a handle on their book. Now they've gotten their business to the next level because you're handling their bookkeeping for them and they know where they stand and all the things. So,
Yeah.
and even knowing my worth and doing that, I've now been able to like hire contractors to help to do this, sign up for Keeper, like afford these extra expenses to provide better services to my clients. You know, so, and all of those things have been my money mindset blocks, or fear, or like all of the things that I've had to constantly work through.
Right. Yeah. And there are two sides of that as well. And that's also a big factor. Cause that's, even when I had somebody here the other day, quoting me for the yard, I had mentally prepared myself for if I was going to do it, and the the parallels between cleaning up somebody's yard work and cleaning up their books struck me as rather humorous because either way, it's a mess. It's somebody else's mess that you're having to show up and pay people to work on and clean up, and there's teams and there's, you know, advertising and things. And so I was joking with him that his advertising was working pretty well because he had done my neighbor's yards. That he had crews out doing my neighbor's yards, and now mine looks like garbage compared to theirs, right? And so I was like, your marketing is working. He's not spending any additional dollars on that, right? But if his guys are doing good work, the work speaks for itself to sell the product, right? So people are driving by, like taking pictures of the truck to get the phone number, and that's how it works. And so I was preparing myself mentally, realistically, I would probably look at this and I expected something like a $1,000 cleanup, and I was in the right kind of ballpark, right? But that's very much the same in bookkeeping. And if you're in a position where you're doing a quote for a cleanup, you really don't want to charge under something like that per year because you have a lot of work ahead of you. You have a lot of unknowns potentially in their books. You don't know, it's not something you're completing in an hour or even a day. And so don't promise turnarounds that are too fast. Don't underquote them. Those are things that are really, really key because you added a bunch of revenue on top of what you would have gotten from that client. And we've seen that for a number of students as well. When you start at the basics with step one, you fix the quoting, that helps to stabilize the revenue in the business. Then they can move to some of the next steps where they're really focusing on processes and procedures and things. And that's why we put together this 4-week challenge to get them on the plan and on the path to success. And that's why we named it the way that we did. And I'm really expecting that that's going to be helpful for a lot of people. So, and it's something that they may want to do a few different times before they're ready for some of the next pieces. But we're trying to, at sort of every one of these levels, every step that people reach in their bookkeeping business, we're trying to figure out how do we most benefit them? How do we get the most out of this work for them? And some of that is all going back to fixing the quoting. But in order to quote with a straight face, where I was going with the story was you also have to understand that that's what services cost. So there's a mental barrier for you on the payment side as well. So
Yep.
until you're ready to pay someone else $1,000 for their service, it's going to be very hard for you with a straight face to turn around and hand somebody $1,000 bill for your service. And it sounds silly. That doesn't mean go buy a new car just so that you can figure out how to charge more money. That's not at all what we're saying, but you have to understand there is an aspect of you need to understand the buying side of the equation to really get a better handle on the selling side of the equation, right? Because you have a mental gymnastic that you have to go through in order to figure out, okay, I really need this service. I really need to be working on, in my case, I need to be working on creating content and having conversations with people about what this business does. I need to, the lawn does not require me to mow it in order for it to be mowed, right? And so I need to separate myself from that task and focus on the things that are generating revenue, that aren't going to be taking away my time and focus from other things. And an aspect of that is getting over that mental hurdle of being willing to pay someone else when you know that that's going to give you back some time that you can refocus on revenue generating activities. And that is a transformational thing that we want to help you guys with, but it's not something that just you're done. You know everything you need to know. And that's why there's so much more in detail that we need to kind of walk alongside you guys with sales training and all these things. That's part of why we've tried to put some of that into, because I think I saw we put the sales training that I did, I think we put that into the video list for the success plan as well. So we've been working on these things in order to help build out the resources that people need in order to get to those next steps. So it's not so much something that we're just trying to figure out what additional things can we sell, because it's not like we're making cookies and muffins in a storefront, right?
Right.
So the things that we're creating have to have value and return to the people that we're serving, because if it doesn't, then it's not useful, right?
Yep.
And that's why we think the service, especially the success plan, I think is going to be so important. But we've also had a lot of internal discussions, and I think for now we're not going to be removing things like the one-to-one bundles, but I think we are going to start encouraging people more toward thinking seriously about the unlimited one-to-one option, because I think that's really going to start making a huge difference with how they can interact with their business and how they can get past roadblocks a lot more quickly. So that's something that I think is going to be instrumental in the growth in a lot of these businesses. And we're probably going to push that one pretty hard. And the reason being because we think that's the right tool to catapult a bunch of people over the next series of hurdles that they're facing. Right. So that's some things that I know you've also experienced. So it might be helpful to speak from the perspective of before you had landed so many clients, because you went through a season not long ago where you lost one of the biggest clients and there was much turmoil and things like a lot of bookkeepers are experiencing right now. So that's a very sort of sharp, very well felt pain point. But it's something that we understand. So what are some of the things that you've seen, for instance, that you made some changes, you lost some big clients, you kept working on the mindset thing, you kept working on the marketing, and then you took kind of this quantum leap forward once you had passed some of those hurdles. So talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot happened last year, and kind of all at once almost. Lost position somewhere. So that was a huge hit in income. I had a large client that was $3,000 a month. That probably within 2 months of losing the other thing, ended up losing him. And it was kind of like, it was a decision on my part because he was so demanding. Yes, he was $3,000 a month, but I was still working, like he was expecting way more than what he should have for that amount. So it was a tough decision that I had to come to. But I knew that that was gonna free up time and energy and everything where I could focus on other areas. Um, and then I mean, even I helped at that time was like, hey, I'll take whatever I can, helping other bookkeepers, contract work, stuff like that. Um, while still focusing on mindset, marketing and all those things, because I knew that's what I had to do to get my business to the next level, was really focus on mindset marketing. How can I show up for my business in all of the ways, make marketing and mindset the first thing that I do every day. Another thing I had to like go back to, like in the beginning of my business, I was writing down my goals every day, and like focusing on that. And I'd kind of gotten away from that. And I realized like, hey, it's time to go back and focus on what are my goals? Where do I want my business to go? And like focus on that daily so that I could push forward. And once I even stopped the contract work and stopped all the things, I mean, just like I mentioned earlier, from January to March, I signed 14 new businesses. So my income increased tremendously. I'm making more now in my business than I ever made, but it had a lot to do with letting go of those other things and just focusing on my business and growing, like doing things in my business and I mean, yes, we've started this other business, but both businesses, focusing on that stuff versus all the extra things, because I knew where I wanted to go. And contract work or working for these other people, I didn't want to be tied down, like with the $3,000 client, that wasn't something I wanted to be tied down to and have to have all this stuff done by a certain time of the day and just all these things. I like the freedom a little bit more because I travel with my daughter all the time during the summer and just all the things. So yeah, but like letting go truly pushed me forward, I feel like, when I let go of some of those things. And that's hard. It's very hard in the beginning. And yes, I spent a good, one thing I've definitely realized about myself, like spend a good day upset and whatever, and like cry, whatever, get over it. But then like the next day
Yeah.
show up fully, like you have to push past it. Don't stay
Yeah.
stuck in that.
I think that's been a big thing that certainly we've gotten to see from our side of things is, because of some of those changes and the willingness to sort of let go of the rope, while feeling like that's the only thing holding you onto the cliff face, is a thing that is terrifying. And there's been some of that going on for us in a number of different areas as well. And we just had a large client pull 3 of his businesses from us and some other things going on. I had a client that was kind of frustrated with their level of service. They were working on trying to have me do personal and as well as business books, and the personal books was a royal mess. And I had gotten everything categorized and cleaned up, and then they canceled that part of the service. And so that was, a couple of weeks of my time that I won't get back. And that's another reason why I want to make sure that you guys are knowing and understanding why you have to charge for the cleanups, because the person that's not interested in paying for your time to do those things is not going to be a good client going forward. And that relationship is going to be rocky, unstable, and stressful. And that doesn't help you. So it's not always helpful to just take whatever money moves, right? And that was kind of the motivation behind that client. So I still have the business accounting relationship, and I'm going to try and focus on that part of it. but that made things a little bit difficult. So there's always going to be turmoil, there's always going to be flux, and there's kind of that there's almost like a 3-year rule in some regards, where if you're somewhere on the order of somewhere between 2 and 3 years, that's when there is just kind of a natural client flux cycle in bookkeeping. And so we're right about that with a good number of the clients on our books. And so we're looking at how do we prepare to replace them? Like, for instance, this group, and we have a new client that's come in that's going to help with that. But there's cycles, right? And you have to expect that there's cycles. So when I pop off about all of this crazy scriptural stuff, like going to study the ant, and learning what they're doing, learning how to start thinking about getting ready for the next season from the season you're in now, not just focusing on whatever season you're in, which is very short-sighted. You can't plan and grow and succeed if you're focused on all of the problems of today. You need to be focused on starting to prepare and learn. Unless, of course, as I joked in the presentation I gave for the BNI group the other day, unless, of course, the exterminator guy that's in the group has been by. So unless your yard is blue, in which case you're probably not going to get much from studying ants at that point. However, you can learn a lot about how to start preparing for winter in the summer and start preparing for summer in the winter, and you will be better prepared for being able to take advantage of the opportunities that come when you're thinking that way. And so when you're losing clients, that's what we would consider a winter season. So you're looking at processes, you're looking at procedures, you're looking at what's our onboarding, what are our interactions like, what are all these things, and analyzing those. And that's why we think some of these sort of unlimited one-to-ones are going to help really at any of these levels. And it had me think about what that process was. And so I brought this back up just so that I could use it again as a reference point. So there is a path, there is a plan that we have for your success. And this is sort of what that looks like for us. We start at the very bottom down here by focusing on the quoting call and making sure that you guys are getting the correct information together from the clients. You get into a routine for here's all the information I need access to QuickBooks and all these other things. Then we work you into the success plan, because that allows you to start seeing, okay, let's start working on, here's what you need to focus on for operations. Let's spend a week looking at that. Let's spend a week looking at your marketing and your messaging and how that's going, how that works, specifically tailored to what you're doing. And then we have the support group. And so this is in this range, the support group and the bookkeeper blueprint. This is where we're going to be encouraging a lot of people to consider the bookkeeper blueprint bundle, which is both of these together in order to get access to the additional trainings that we do, the webinars. So there's been a lot of interest and questions recently in terms of especially like realtors and what they do and how to talk to them. And so we recently had Chelsea do a webinar on real estate investors. And so we're continually building out the resource library for you guys so that we can be the go-to resource for the bookkeeping community for every level of your business. And that support group, I think, is really, really important. And this is where that idea of the unlimited one-to-ones is trying to do in some ways what the support group does, but differently, in that instead of focusing on the support group, we're really focusing more on these unlimited one-to-ones to be able to answer questions much more quickly and efficiently, like we've talked about. So the special that we've been running, if you guys haven't gotten a chance to reply to those, make sure to follow up. Those posts are kind of all throughout the group right now. So if you're still curious about that, book a meeting with one of us. We can get you guys the link, send us a message or whatever. We'll capture all the info that we need to help you guys get to the next steps. And the Bookkeeper Blueprint is the resource that we put together. This is kind of a living course that we're going to continue adding material to as we go along. And once you guys purchase this, you'll get the lifetime access to it. So it's something that on the one hand seems like some of these resources are very expensive, but when you look at the expense relative to what we expect your return to be coming back out of these, the expense actually should be very, very low. It's kind of a general expectation that if you're in the support group, the things that you're learning are going to be continually adding revenue to your business. The things that you're going to master from the Bookkeeper Blueprint are going to get your mindset ready to where you're able to make even 5-figure months if you're really carefully applying all of those things and you're getting to you're getting into those conversations, you're getting in front of people, you're learning the sales and all of those things. So the things that you're starting to learn here, we're trying to amplify and turn up with the Bookkeeper Blueprint and the support group to help kind of continually answer questions. But that's where we needed some additional something here in the mid-range for as you guys are growing and stretching all the different directions. There's a lot more questions than come up, and the support group is great for that. But sometimes there's an extra level of I need a personal conversation real quick, 2, 3, 4, or 5 messages with somebody to get my answers, and then I'm good on this. And that's really where we focused on developing that. And then our upper range, we've got a couple different things that we're doing with these. We have a much less expensive version that covers some of this elite level where you're learning a lot more about training and scaling. And so this down here is this sort of starting the business range. This is the kind of growing the business range. So really anywhere in here. And then once you get up to the elite level, we're really focused on helping to get you guys all the way over the hurdles to end up at your goal, whatever that specific goal is. Because there's some people that have been messaging us that are, maybe $1,000 a month short of what their big target goal is or something. And that's something that if you're already doing 5,000 a month in revenue, let's say as just a ballpark figure, it's not all that difficult for us to help you get a couple more steps into your goal of 6,000 a month, if that's what it is, right? That's only another 20% increase in what you've already been doing. So it's not all that hard to be able to reach some of those goals. But this is what that sort of structure looks like so that we can help you guys step up all the way. Because there are some questions, especially up at this range, where you're trying to scale, you're trying to issue with contractors and supporting firms and trying to learn about strategic partnerships. And so you have some much, much more complicated, detailed questions at that level. And so that's why we've put the support calls up here, as those are some of the last pieces to get you through the how, right? Because you can find a million coaches out there that are going to teach you the what, but we actually have at each of these different steps, we're teaching you different aspects of the how in order to get there, right? And so we're telling you the things, even on these calls, what to be doing, but you're not learning all of the how behind it. And so that's really one of our major goals.
Yep.
So, and I know you've had a lot of input and thoughts on kind of the structure of this and some of the pricing and things. And that's been one of the big things too, is trying to make sure that we have offerings that meet needs at every different level and every different stage, right? Because part of your story has that aspect of walking through from the very, very beginning, not having the revenue to even consider something like if somebody had told you $300 a month support group, your eyes would have rolled back in your head.
Yeah.
Right?
Most definitely.
That's a very real thing. So that's a thing that we understand. And it's a thing that we were working very carefully on. How do we build out at each of those different levels, what those things are? How do we make sure that we have offers that aren't just going to leave people off on the sidelines, so that they can get the tools that they need to get to the next step? And I think that's been instrumental in the development.
Yep, most definitely. Yeah, I purchased a course, and I mean, of course, like everybody, like with cleanup jobs and stuff, you could pay for additional support and stuff like that. So that's definitely one thing that is super exciting about the way all this is set up. Like you can buy one-to-ones as you need them. You can purchase the course as you need, however you want to do it as the money comes in. Because yeah, you're 100% correct. I paid on it when I even set that up. I paid on it for a couple of months before I could pay the 600 because I'm a single mom, just did not have the income. But it's also one of those things where you can grow this as quick or as slow as you want as well. Because when I did it, I didn't have the extra money to do it, but I knew, and I had goals that I wanted to reach very, very quickly. So I knew I needed to get clients as soon as I could. So I had to do everything I could to start signing clients. So I signed clients within like 2 weeks of setting everything up for my business. But it was because I put everything I had into doing it, like doing the marketing, showing up, doing all the things. So you can do it as quick or as slow as you want, from that standpoint. So
Yeah, well, and we've definitely seen for us, for yourself, for several of the coaches, we've seen what it is and what it takes to be able to, in some cases, to add an additional 6 figures of revenue to the bookkeeping business, legitimately of recurring monthly revenue, not including cleanups and other things. So we've seen instances where people have added, I don't know, 120, 130,000 to their annual revenue in a time frame of a year or less. In some cases, as short as adding, we have actually seen something like 30,000 a month, roughly, additional revenue. And the way that you get there is just like you said, you had a few month period where you signed on like 14 new businesses. That's a tremendous shift in workload, but that also puts you in a position where the revenue comes up. So it's not pie in the sky goals. It's not we guarantee these kinds of incomes. It's if your goal is clear, it sort of doesn't matter what your goal is, so long as your goal is clear and you know the why behind what you're doing. We can definitely help you guys get there. And that's why we think some of the things like the unlimited one-to-ones really are going to be helpful for a lot of people. So again, if you guys have more questions about those and what that structure looks like, shoot us a message. Myself, Megan, Sherry will get on a call with you. We'll get you the invite link. So it's a different calendar link we're using for that. But if you're curious about those, definitely follow up with us, because we think that's going to be the tool that, especially in combination with a couple other things we put together during this promotion, I really think that's going to help a lot of people to get through the hurdles. And in a sense, that's going to give them the option to decide. They're not going to participate in whatever the next most immediate financial crisis is for stuff and things. The number of times that the world has ended because of scary things just in my lifetime is absurd. Because I can very vividly remember things like the year that was going to end all years, when Y2K was going to happen.
oh yeah.
And all this stuff, right? I don't know that I don't know that anything is really going to top that for me in terms of end of the world for sure. I, yeah, having survived things like Y2K and the Mayan calendar, and all of these other things. I was so busy in school during the '08 recession with some of the things I was doing. I really didn't notice at all that it happened. And so I know that it is possible to go through circumstances and not actually be impacted by them. So yeah, I think one of the things that we'll encourage you guys very strongly to do is turn off the distractions. And that probably includes any and all news channels. Because at this point, the news is not much better than Facebook. One is trying to get you to do things one way, one is trying to get you to do things another way. And so I'm choosing to be much more difficult to control and corral. So I'm not going to participate. I'm going to help people grow their businesses in spite of whatever else is going on, because as long as businesses are allowed to exist, there's still new problems to solve. And I've talked to a number of business owners, and I've asked some of the seasoned folks at BNI about that feeling. Hey, remember back to when you experienced the feeling that like you've solved all the problems in your business and there's no more problems to solve? And they all look at me and they laugh like I'm nuts because I'm making the point that there is no, I'm checking to make sure that I'm still correct on this, but it really is an important thing. And if you ask, especially seasoned business owners, they will literally laugh in your face over this. It's really, really, really important for you guys to have the right kind of mindset going in. And if you decide that you're not going to be scared about limited resources in the future, I mean, certainly the government prints money like it's infinite, right? So regardless of your political background and stance, clearly they think it's infinite. And so it's okay for you to think about it differently. Because one of the things I encourage people to do is look at some of the costs of the houses around them. And, even if you're taking a few minutes on Zillow or something, look at the costs of some of the houses, look at some of the costs of the for sale commercial buildings and things. And you might find that even in your small town, there's well in excess of $1 trillion of real estate in your town, right? That money doesn't exist, except it does sort of, right? So we need to get you guys to the point where you understand that price is an agreement of value between two parties. It's not something that's backed by a limited supply of something else. And the services and things that you're doing are not bound to even a specific hourly rate or something, unless you decide, more accurately, unless you decide that that's the case, right? So somebody else may have decided that a bookkeeper is not valuable to them because it's just glorified data entry. Great, that's not your ideal customer.
Right. Exactly.
Walk away. There's more. People are still starting new businesses, right? I heard some crazy things a couple of years ago about, COVID did so much damage everywhere that, nobody will ever start new businesses again or something. Like I actually heard that from somebody, and I remember thinking, what? Tell that to the Elon Musks of the world, and they're gonna say, hold my energy drink, right?
Yep.
So we want you guys very much to get out of the mindset of the scarcity of the resources not being available. There's no money, there's no clients. There's businesses everywhere. There's problems to solve everywhere. and you guys are in a position to provide a very valuable service, right? We're not teaching you how to do an MLM or a pyramid scheme type business. We're not trying to sell you on affiliates and things. We do have an affiliate offering that we're working on for people that have gone through the course and some other things like that, so that you guys have an opportunity where you can legitimately make back most of what you've spent or much more on the course by doing those affiliate offerings. And so we can get you guys specific links and things. The key is we want to make sure that you guys are on the path to success, but you also understand that the business that you're doing is not something that's valueless. It's not something that's minimum wage tier. It's not cleaning grease traps out in a fast food restaurant. You're providing a meaningful service for businesses so that they can focus on the core of their service, less on the mechanics of the back end of their business. And it's really, really important to understand that distinction, because if you have a mindset of, I don't know if they're going to pay me, that scarcity mindset is defeating you before you walk into the call.
Right.
I'm 100% sure that one of the clients that we signed recently was because I was able to walk into that call with 100% confidence that we know exactly what the kind of problem is and we know how to solve it. It's going to take us a little bit of time to fix it all, but the answers are there. And that's what we've been really, really heavily focused on. So we have a lot of opportunity in this space to be able to get you guys way above and beyond the hurdles of scarcity, so that you guys can make it through all of these things, right? And so, yeah, another one that I see Debbie mentioned in the chat was the gas shortage. So yeah, there's been so many scary, terrifying, horrible events that have been going to end the earth. It's entertaining to watch. I've seen a couple summary videos of like all of the ways that the climate was going to kill all of humanity. And apparently Greta Thunberg had to pull back a bunch of her tweets because, or go back and delete them because humanity was going to be completely extinct by the year 2023. Whoops. When you make silly, ridiculous predictions based on calamity, you often end up being on the wrong side of history. So we want you guys to not be in that position. So it turns out humanity is still here in 2023. So the likelihood that any of those overly sensationalized reports are going to come to full fruition, yeah, you should have enough experience under your belt at this point to realize it's not even worth me clicking on the clickbait ad title. Just avoid it, walk away, focus on serving the clients, particularly in your area, like Megan has done, and you will have the growth opportunities and you will get introduced at timing that you won't be able to control, but you'll get introduced to other conversations, other business owners. And so it might be helpful for them to hear more about how that has worked for them, for you specifically.
Yeah, definitely. So of course, when I started, it was pre-COVID. So I felt like me, and even talking to some people, of course, it was like, oh, I'm doing virtual, doing virtual, but not everybody was receptive to that. So I tried to kind of stick to local when I first started, just because I could meet them in person. People felt more comfortable with that. And it was really to my advantage. I mean, I found groups on Facebook that were local business groups. So I would just type in the city that I'm in, small business, cities close to me, state, all the things, small business, found some groups. And there was some in-person networking groups going on at that time. Some of them, it was still happening. One of them was pretty small, just starting, but it's people who like the idea of BNI, but were still working full time, trying to make their business work as well. So they
Right.
couldn't be at a BNI meeting every week or all the things.
And also didn't want to pay the $800 extortion fee.
Exactly. And couldn't afford to pay or want to pay the fees.
Mhm.
So this was like, hey, we'll just get together once a month, have dinner, all meet, not have to pay fees, just figure out how we
Mhm.
can network and stuff like that. So we did that. And I mean, there was three other business owners besides myself at the first meeting that I went to. There's like 400 and some people in that group now, on
Yeah.
Facebook, and they meet all the time. They do vendor events, they do all the things. So I was just constantly showing up to stuff like that I could get to, join in the local groups on Facebook, constantly showing up there.
Yeah.
And then people would want to meet in person to talk about. My very first potential client called me, but then she was like, hey, we need to meet in person so I can meet you and talk about it. So of course I was super nervous about that, but it
Sure.
all was super beneficial for me because I made a lot of relationships. I formed a lot of relationships that way. People got to know me. I hopped on a lot of phone calls. If people had a question about their bookkeeping, yeah, let's hop on, let's chat. So I got reviews from people because they were like, oh, you were super helpful. You didn't try to sell us something we didn't need. I was honest and upfront about that.
Mhm.
So that helped me form a ton of relationships. So people now, and even then, when they would see somebody looking for a bookkeeper, I'm the first person that they tag. So a lot of times I'll be tagged in one post that happens. I might have 5 or 6 tags in there because people know my name. I've been showing up so much, joining these groups and everything.
Yeah.
And even Chamber of Commerce, our Chamber of Commerce has a lot of events and stuff that business owners can show up to, and you don't, in your first couple of meetings, you don't have to sign up yet before you join Chamber of Commerce. So
Yeah.
there's free networking groups out there and stuff.
There are, and that's definitely one that it will encourage people to go do as much as possible is going to be some of those free networking groups, because for me especially, the primary reason for getting into something like BNI for my other business was I was originally trying to join it for the bookkeeping business, but because they had a tax guy, they didn't want to like infringe, even though that's technically supposed to be separate categories in the system. And
Right.
so the whole thing ended up joining for the other business. And by the time that membership finishes, I will have probably returned the initial cost. I will probably have returned that about 10x, maybe more, in total repairs and work out of that. But the time sink is huge for that, and having to have it be in the middle of the day for lunch. But it really takes, maybe an hour and a half, couple hours of your time, including travel time minimum. It's challenging for sure. So it's got to be worth the time and the effort to put in. And that's where the free groups are probably going to be a lot more of a better fit for a lot of people. So we want to encourage you guys to show up, do the things, ask the questions. You have a lot more options than you think, probably. And so that's why even a couple weeks ago, if you guys missed that call, I went through lots and lots and lots of marketing ideas that aren't all necessarily in person. They're all remote, but they're not all Facebook messaging, right?
Right.
There's a lot of people that are curious about those. So definitely, if you guys haven't, go back and check out those as well. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of value there. Some things that I hadn't even thought of really before putting those resources together. So we wanted to give you guys a chance to really see and understand what the options are and what's going on. So if you guys do have additional questions, feel free to follow up with us. If you haven't had questions answered, or if you are curious about things like the unlimited one-to-one package, definitely shoot us a message. We'll get you a calendar link. and kind of walk you through what that is, what that looks like, and what we expect you guys to get out of it.
Yep.
So we're glad to have you guys here, and hopefully this was beneficial. We're excited to see everybody get a chance to grow, because the more successful you guys are, the better the whole group will become as a result.
Yep, most definitely.
All right, well, I haven't seen any other questions come in from the Facebook side, so hopefully this has been beneficial. Thanks, Debbie, for jumping on. Hopefully beneficial to you.
Yeah, it was great, guys. Megan, I always enjoy, since I have known you pretty close to your start, I always enjoy hearing your story.
Thank you.
And that gas shortage was in the 70s, where you had to go by odd even license plate numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yes, I have heard a lot of discussions about that, especially in context of where we are today, and
Right.
just having been at Sam's Club to fill up the other day. I was talking to the attendant, and he, not long ago, he completely ran out of gas, and the manager that was there, who apparently is no longer a manager.
Yeah, what do you think was going to happen there?
You know, I suspect those two are connected. Might not be the only incident, but I suspect those two are connected.
Oh my
He
goodness,
said,
they lost a
yeah,
lot of money.
this manager is that was no longer with us. I asked him, and I was like, hey, you know, any update? And the manager was like, no, there's no gas coming. And he's like, no, I have people like waiting and lined up to buy gas. What do you mean? Like, it's not like like this is an
Oh my
emergency.
goodness.
And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. So just many bad things. So at the end of the day,
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, my dad was a contractor at a huge IBM plant during that, and his pickup had dual tanks. So every Friday he'd fill up both tanks, bring it home. We would siphon the gas out into me and my brother's cars, and he'd go back to work Monday, fill up again, you know.
Yep.
So I never even felt it, but we definitely saw the lines.
Yeah. Well, and that's called a creative use of the tools available, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And
or
that's
stealing.
exactly right. Right. So we have to get the most out of the tools available to us. So that's what we're going to encourage you guys to do. So yeah, I like it. I like that idea. All right. Well, thanks for jumping on. We gotta go put out some other fires now, but we want to make sure we're giving you guys the time and energy and effort needed so that you guys can succeed and be encouraged.
It was great today. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.